On the 21st and 22nd of October, CIG gave us probably the best CitizenCon presentation that we've seen in years, and I was blown away by everything that they delivered. Honestly, after looking through the schedule and seeing everything that they had listed on the presentation panels, I was not very impressed at first, and there was very little that I was looking forward to. I thought that a lot of the demos that they were going to give were just going to be tech demos or more ships that they were going to sell, but I'll be honest and say that that was my pessimism really getting to me at that point, because it's been 10 years that I've been following this project, and we've been in a content drought for the last few years. We'll get a patch one year and then we'll get 4 patches the next year, but features aren't being added quickly enough in order to keep a lot of us busy and a lot of us happy. And after reading the schedule for the presentations and the panels that they were going to deliver, there wasn't much that I was looking forward to. However, as CitizenCon went on, I found myself pretty excited for each panel and thought that there were a lot of great features and information that we were getting, and a lot of the features weren't just a tech demo, and instead were actual gameplay. And that was probably what really blew my mind. So let's begin with the first panel they delivered and the first demo that they showed off. First up, CIG showed us all a video of StarEngine and all of its features, most of which we've already seen. They did manage to show off some things that have yet to be added to the game, such as new fauna such as space cows and space whales, a new quantum effect that most of us loved, and a traversal through the jump point, which the entrance and exit seemed a little rough, but I think that will be fixed over time. They also showed us a lot of pyro, updates to lighting, sun shaft occlusion, the dynamic fire simulation, advanced physically based water effects, physically based destruction, star cloth, and finally, dynamic blood and sweat. And I don't think any of us really expected a lot of those features to be added to the game. For me, this was a fairly exciting video to watch. It made me believe that when more people see this, they'll begin being pretty interested in Star Citizen more, or at least following its progress more closely. So what does this mean for us in the future? Well, during this part of the presentation, it didn't really mean much to a lot of us who play currently, because there were little to no gameplay improvements or features to show off by this one video. However, it did serve as a great way for CIG to market both their game and their engine. They have worked tirelessly to get to this level of detail, and I fully believed at this point that their point was twofold, both to sell their engine and also to use it to market their game. During the first panel, there was some discussion on the updates to clouds, fog, and the rather impressive light shafts update that improved the visuals of the game, which we can look forward to in update 3.22. My only negative to this section was that they titled it Clouds, Fog, and Weather, but the weather wasn't discussed at all, and I would have liked them to at least give us a demo showing even essential weather like rain and thunderstorms. Moving on, CIG showed off the new dynamic fire simulation, and this was one thing that was pretty impressive to see how they plan to integrate it into the game, and how exactly the fires will spread to different materials such as wood, cloth, metal, and wiring, and how these fires spread throughout the ship using a voxel grid system that took into account mass, energy density, combustion temperature, air-fuel ratio, and the fire propagates based on the convection and radiation that caused knock-on effects. They also explained how the oxygen can feed the fire, as well as how we will be able to put out the fires with a fire extinguisher or by venting the atmosphere within specific rooms on ships and stations. With this addition to Star Citizen, I believe it will create more of a reason to have a crew on bigger ships, add gameplay for the ship crews after or during a battle, as well as add a higher level and degree of difficulty to the game. Water effects and rendering were also talked about, where they showed off adding wave crest light scattering, physically based lighting and refraction, improved screen space reflections, improving foam render, and integrating all of this with the atmosphere of the planet so that the scene looks amazing and believable. Seeing an accurate Fresnel effect on the water was pretty amazing, but more amazing still was the accurate water lighting, the wave crest light scattering, and the distant surface and subsurface foam that they showed off. Applying all of these improvements to the Stanton and Pyro system, and all the other future systems, will drastically enhance the already amazing scenes we have in the game. They also gave us a demo of the water surface simulation that will add visual effects, physics, and multi-input effects that will affect water. Some of these examples were footsteps, bullets, wake, thruster effects, collisions, and buoyancy. Honestly, I can hear all of those Origin ship owners screaming like joyful children at the thought of landing their ships and having them float in water. I think this would be a pretty cool feature to finally see. Lastly, in this section of the panel, they showed off a video of their multiple scale simulation where they dragged their cursor through the water and created both small and large water effects that just looked amazing. Now, as if the number of features, the graphical fidelity they're aiming for, and the realistic immersion they look to add to this game wasn't enough, they introduced blood, sweat, and tears. They want to simulate your character dynamically bleeding, sweating, and tearing up in certain situations. Wait, what? Hold on for just 2 seconds. Has any game ever done this? I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen it, but I think that's a pretty cool feature. They also showed things like scope shader improvements, which were a very welcome update that we've been needing for some time, HDR improvements, and temporal upscaling such as their new TSR, AMD's FSR2, and NVIDIA's DLSS2. Hey, CIG, can we also get NVIDIA's frame generation technology added too? Please? That'd be incredible. They also showed us some R&D work on how they can create planets using machine learning to make planets easier, faster, and more unique. Honestly, a pretty awesome feature that would further increase their productivity and detail of new planets to add more systems quickly. CIG also talked about Vulkan and showed a video of it in action. This will be another feature that adds much better frame rates to Star Citizen, and they stated that they are nearing the end of necessary work to get Vulkan in the game. Boy, that will be amazing. Global illumination and ray tracing were another set of graphical features that were shown off that made even more realistic lighting effects that add even more visually stunning scenes into the game. I was pretty happy about this since the cockpit is often dark, even in broad daylight, and having other objects like the planet itself reflect light into the cockpit is awesome. Star cloth and star hair were also brought to our attention, which gave us pretty realistic cloth and hair physics within the verse, making cloth and hair look and flow realistically. These 2 new additions will prevent hair and other clothing from clipping through armor and helmets and other items. It will make cloth and hair flow in the wind, from movement, and from other game physics such as someone kicking a soccer ball through your legs? Yeah, weird, but cool nonetheless. And as if that all wasn't enough, CIG pretty much dropped the mic and told us that they're also going further in introducing battlefield-style destruction to the game. Finally, we can all live out our dreams by dropping bombs onto an unsuspecting settlement and completely leveling the buildings that have stood for years. However, I believe that there will be some limitations to this, and it will only apply to certain types of buildings like ruins, derelict settlements, and concrete blocks or objects that may provide cover. The audio guys finally came together and showed off a lot of improvements for weapon effects, making guns and ship weapons sound a lot more visceral and beefy by adding in sound pressure and the forces being exerted. Then they showed us a realistic audio mode in the cockpit and on foot in a vacuum, making the audio sound like it should have since there is no sounds in space. This made vibrations travel through your ship and your suit to increase immersion and make things seem even more dangerous. Overall, I'm very impressed with the first panel they showed off, and I'm looking forward to all the features. Many of these features will enhance the look and the feel of the game and how the game is played. The last section of the panel showed off static server meshing and the replication layer fully working in the game. But I plan to leave that section for another video because there's a lot to cover, and I found out that CIG is even further along than we initially thought with server meshing. Could this finally be the beginning of exponential progress being made for Star Citizen? With a lot of the developers transitioning over to begin on Star Citizen after Squadron 42 entered the polish and optimization phase, I believe that things are beginning to look up after a few too many years of consistent content drought. And I am very much looking forward to seeing where 2024 will take us in the verse. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. With that, I hope that you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the verse. Advic out.